What are some of the research skills that students who are taking your course need to hone?
There was one student who was working on a project to locate these remote places and then map them. And after a couple of weeks, he wrote in his travel log that these places don't even exist. Even Google doesn't have them, right? And I just sort of burst out laughing when I read that even Google doesn't have them. And so sent him a humorous reply telling him that we have to go beyond Google. If Google had everything, we wouldn't need all of us. And so gave him some tools that he could use and told him about some of the old gazetteers and other resources that he could find in the library. And so he and the other student with whom he was working, they decided to go out to the library, look into some of these old maps, trying to see whether names have changed over time. They also looked at which district a particular village was in and whether anybody had traveled, whether they had talked about another village being nearby. And they enjoyed that so much, they started talking about it in terms of the television show The Amazing Race, and saying this is even better than The Amazing Race, because they were finding things that even Google didn't have, and realizing that they had actually discovered far more than Google could discover for them. So I'd say that probably one of the most important things that they're learning is that there are resources beyond what they had ever imagined before. And they are getting access to these resources now and discovering new resources as well. And the second thing is they're learning how to evaluate those resources. So they're able to tell, well, what is valid information, what is not valid information. And that's carried over into other aspects of their life too. For example, when they read a story in the newspaper, they don't take it as given fact. They want to see, well, what sources was the reporter using? How do they come to these conclusions? And they're questioning, which is really good.
What tools and supports have you and your team developed to support student research skill development?
The word that you used right now I think is central, that what tools have you and your team developed? And I would say that's one of the most important things that I've learned from this, is that in the past, whenever I've developed a course, it's always been me developing the course and then consulting with other people to help with that. This was the first course that I've really developed in which it was an entire team developing the course. And the people that we have here at the University of Toronto to assist us with this are amazing. So yourself, Simone, I mean, you really made me think about the idea of learning outcomes and what we really want students to achieve at the end of it. And both you and Cleo Boyd helped me think through how our assessments have to match the outcomes that we hope to achieve in order for student learning to take place. Lori was fundamental for the entire process, because she was, in a way, giving us the experience of what an online course has to look like. What are the strengths compared to other types of courses? What are the weaknesses and how do we address those weaknesses? And keeping us on a schedule. And then we had people like Rochelle, who is a technological genius with all of the new types of resources that are available to us, particularly in an online environment. A central aspect of the course was the Navigating Your Travels section, which was the information literacy modules. And Patricia Bellamy and Elaine Gettler from the St. George and UTM libraries were the geniuses behind that aspect of the course. And we've had students posting in their journals that the skills that they learned through those modules have helped them throughout their other courses, not only in the course that they're doing with me. So all members of this team were central. And somebody who's been with me for years is my research team coordinator, Shanifa Nasser, who has been just a fantastic addition to the team. She's been helping the students in every stage. She's been designing certain of the elements of the course. So anybody who's doing something like this needs to have a brilliant graduate student to work with them.
What has been put into place to measure improvements in student research skill development?
So we have several methods of assessment which are targeted towards the learning outcomes. So every week either myself or the research coordinator, we give feedback on student projects as well as on their travel logs. They submit to us every week an assignment, and we make sure that they're on track. We give them ideas for other areas to explore. So that's one method where there is an evaluation that's taking place. They also get evaluation from their peers, because in the discussion groups, the peers are giving them feedback on the projects that they're working on. And a major evaluation technique that we've been using that I think has been particularly effective is a self-assessment that we give them, in which we describe the learning outcomes that we hope to achieve and the various measures that we can use to gauge how people are working on those outcomes, and ask them to look at themselves and to see whether they are measuring up to some of these. And I found that one of the most encouraging things was how honest they were. That some of the best students were self-critical about where they had arrived at certain places. How much feedback they were giving to others, for example, in the Cairo Cafe or in the Delhi Darbar, and saying that, I could really pick up on this. I haven't been as involved as I should be. And then after they did this extensive self-assessment, we gave them extensive feedback on that. And what I saw in the very next week is how they acted on it. That you could actually see the difference that it made in their own participation online. That they really took that to heart and they made changes in how they were learning. Which I thought was also very empowering. I think that at this point, they feel very much in control of their own learning, which is nice. They're not dependent on us, because we can't do the learning for them. But they know that they were always there to support them. So that self-critique was good, also because they knew that it was in a supportive environment. That the self-critique was not reflective of having failed. It was reflective of having learned, and what was the next stage of my learning going to be. So I think that really put the power in their own hands.